Infrastructure Committee meeting. Welcome to our members online and members of the public. I'm just going to carry on talking because you should all be paying attention. Thank you, Councillor McIndoe. Right, before we start, I'm going to go to Mangai Hill, who will open us with a karakia.
Morena kia tātou ka whakapiripiri mai nei. Kararo te maru o tēnei o ngā tuaotanga o tēnei hui, no reira me mihi ka tika. Me inoa tātou, hekiti te ronga mai whiti o tēnei hui, tukuna kia ea, tukuna kia oi, ko rangi nui e tiho nei, ko papatunuku e takoto nei, haumi e hui e, tae ki e. Translated, Madam Chair, it means may we have a prosperous and successful hui today. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Mangai Hill, and I think we need it today, so thank you. No, we don't. Right, let's move on. We have full apologies from Councillor Naidu-Rolfe, apologies for lateness from Councillor Taylor, and apologies for lateness from Councillor Wilson, who will, when he arrives, will be attending on Zoom. Any other apologies? There are none, so I'll move the apologies be received, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favour say aye. Aye. There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. There are no changes other than slight moving around of the public forum speakers. So I'll confirm that the agenda be received, seconded by, thank you, Councillor Van Osten. All those in favour? Aye. There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? There are none. Right, let's move on to the public forum. Our first presenter up is Rana Hay, and Rana is speaking on item 8. Oh, yes, good morning. Welcome. You come up to the chair there, and there's a timer that sits on the bottom end of the screen. It's 5 minutes. If you want to allow for questions, you need to make that happen within the 5 minutes, but we are in your hands.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of the community who live in the Peacocks Waterford Road, and discussions I've had with them about the hazards for micromobility in that area. Pedestrians are struggling to cross both Waterford and Peacocks Road, in particular, and with regards to the bus stops of Waterford Road. Motorists speed down that blind corner down from Dixon Road on Waterford Road in order to access the left turn into Peacocks or to access the bridge. There are no pedestrian crossings for the people who are trying to cross with prams and mobility scooters in order to access the bus stops. This route needs immediate traffic calming devices, preferably lower speeds. Motorists never give way to pedestrians or children on bikes when they attempt to cross the Peacocks Road that leads up to Norrie Road. There's a section in the middle where the pedestrians stop. The stop sign has been demolished, so they've moved it for the safety of the stop sign, but there's nothing safe for the children. And I've sent an email to the Infrastructure Committee showing how a child is sitting in the middle, he's sandwiched between 2 cars, 4 cars, don't stop for him, but just go through, and he's sitting on his bike, sandwiched between them and the cars behind him. There's an absence of proper footpaths on both sides of the road, which forces vulnerable people to use, like mobility scooters, people with twin prams, to cross the road several times in order to reach their destination. On the one side, both sides, it's partially grass, partially cement, and there's grass verges next to the houses and a very narrow footpath. So the people park on the grass verges, they put their bins on the footpath, so now you have to get onto the road in order to get anywhere at all. And it's worse on weekends and evenings when there's no traffic control, there's nobody monitoring the situation. There's a significant increase in traffic hazards. Crossing in front of Little Pumpkin's early daycare centres, mothers have complained that they struggle to cross the road in the mornings nowadays, now that we've got that opening to the bridge and we have 1,400 plus people, motorists coming down that road. And there's only one place they can cross because it's all grass verge, no footpath, so they can only cross at the point where there's an entrance to the Little Pumpkins. And the speed in this area is very confusing because there are 2 different speeds. I think there's one of 40 and then another of 50, but the slower speed isn't outside Little Pumpkins, which doesn't make sense. The residents are complaining that their houses shake with the amount of traffic that come down that road now that there's an increase in traffic. And one has told me she has photos of cracks on the walls. She hasn't unfortunately supplied me with those photos, but since the houses, there are cracks in that new building, that new structure for the Housing New Zealand. I know that there are more plans to do more roadworks. However, this is in some unknown future. And right now, we need safety. Right now, people are being confined to their homes. We are forced to provide ourselves with our own safety measures, which partially involves just staying at home if you have an accessibility problem. And Hamilton City Council has provided us with absolutely nothing. So we really need something now, not some distant future when you are restructuring that area anyway. Thank you for listening to me. And I have sent emails of the photographs. I'm sorry,
Yes.
they're poor photographs, but they are there and I've tried the best I can. I'm not a professional photographer.
Yes,
so.
no, they're great. They're in our diligent agenda packs on, oopsie, I've just lost that, on page 134. And the photos are great, so
Okay.
it's very clear. We have time for questions if the committee members have any questions. There are none. Thank you very much. Your comments and your concerns were very clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate that. Right, next speaker up is Melissa Smith, representing Bike Waikato, and she's speaking on item 8. Morena, Melissa.
Morena.
You're very familiar with the process, so I won't go over it.
Thank you very much.
When you're ready.
Morena councillors, thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak with you this morning, as always. I'm here to speak on item 8, which is the suite of cycling and walking improvement local share projects. I'm here to speak on behalf of Bike Waikato and the cycling community in Hamilton to say that we are wholeheartedly in support of these projects. I had the opportunity to sit down with some of the staff at the council to walk through some of the projects that were happening, and they were very exciting. And something that the city has been waiting for a long time. I've also had the opportunity to speak with some of you, and you have said, you know, we might want to swap one project for another project, one that was maybe not currently funded, and swapping some things around. The important thing from my point of view is that projects are funded and that projects go ahead, even if there are some swapping of things on the list. The important thing for us and for the community and for the city is to see that cycling and walking is being funded and is being given the appropriate attention. In the last few months, it has been really great to see as the weather has gotten warmer, lots and lots of people out on their bikes, more than I've seen before, which is really encouraging. And I think it will be even more encouraging for the people of Hamilton to see the council funding these projects, to fund these priorities, and to give effect to the strategies such as Access Hamilton that you have already passed. Thank you. I don't need to say too much more than that. Looking forward to these projects going ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. As always, we appreciate you taking the time and very clear support, as we can see, for the projects in the report. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Vanessa Williams from the Hamilton Central Business Association, and she is speaking on the parking report. Good morning, and I don't need to go over the process with you either. Frequent flyer that you are.
Thank you for having me along this morning. I just actually wanted to make a few comments on the parking situation, as has been fed back to me a number of times since the parking changed last year. Probably the most overwhelming piece of feedback I have is that parking needs to be easy for everybody. That's all it needs to be, which I know sounds, again, very simple. But at the moment, it doesn't feel easy across a number of different audiences. So such things like we need simple messaging that can be understood quickly and without the need for large amounts of data that have to be read. And I'm not saying this is the exact offering it should be, but something like free for 1 hour, 2 hours thereafter, validate at parking meter or via the app. Not the T's and C's and the zones and all of this sort of thing. It just needs to be really clear. So we keep getting feedback around confusion of how long people can park in town. Is payment only via the app? What do we do if we're up the road and we've used our free hour? How can we pay for it? Do we have to have the app? There's some people who don't want the app. And I've spoken to a number of young people by virtue of having a 18-year-old daughter who just say, it's just too hard, we don't know what to do, so we don't come in. As this is purely as a shopping offering, I think that's really sad. We need to get better. We need to make it easier. I've had a number of people come back to me about the parking meters. They're not easy to find. I actually had to drive into town and go and visit a business on Princess Street, and I walked around and couldn't find the parking meter. And I'd like to think I'm reasonably okay at knowing what they look like. The kiosk, sorry, I say meter, I mean the kiosk. And I couldn't find the kiosk. I actually moved my car because I knew I was going to be in the accountants for longer than an hour, and I didn't want to get stung because I thought that would be a very bad look for me to get a ticket. But again, the parking kiosks, we get feedback that there's not enough of them. So particularly if you think of the community previously paid for parking beside their car park. You know, we had parking meters at every single park. Now we've got one kiosk per street. For some people, it's just not enough. It's not as accessible. It's not easy. So I really think there should be some thought going into whether there should be, when I think there should be more kiosks. There is confusion around the app and the paying at the kiosk. They're not the same. They don't work the same way. Validating the 1 hour free on the app is quite different to doing it on the kiosk. The incremental parking of parking for 15 or 20 minutes can be done, I think, on the app, but not on the kiosk. I think the app uses the numbered bay to add to it, and then the kiosk uses number plate. I could have that wrong, but they're not marrying up in their entirety together. Again, it's just not easy when you have them working differently. And I had feedback that there's too many continues, and so people haven't had parking validated because of not going through enough screens. Again, that doesn't feel easy. If we've got to go through continuous pushing of buttons, do you want a receipt? No, you would think you would just walk away, where actually you still have to hit continue again to finalise it. So again, I'm just going to keep saying the messaging around easy and the messaging around it's free for 1 hour, but you can pay thereafter. And, you know, I have spoken to people who have said, oh, we can only come in for an hour and we think our things are going to take longer. And I'm like, well, just pay the $2 or whatever afterwards. And there is some surprise that it's not just fixed at the 1 hour. So, yeah, a few comments and suggestions there. It would be great to see some positive stories around the parking, which I know is very hard to get, but even some online videos that could be put up. I know Hamilton City Council is getting big on TikTok. You know, this is how you validate your parking. 3 easy steps, not 18. You know, like just keep getting that messaging going out. I know that it's been in for a little while, but there's still confusion out there. We would just like it seen as being an easy offering in town. 30 seconds, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. There is a question from Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Vanessa, for coming in and for your excellent presentation. In terms of, I had some feedback around the Garden Place car park only having 20 minutes free and that being inconsistent. Can you provide some thoughts on that? And also, you mentioned the zones and that. Am I hearing that you'd prefer there to just be not the yellow and green zones, but just for it to be consistent?
Again, I think I'll take the last one first. For ease, one zone. Yeah. It just is easy, having to incorporate colours and all the rest of it. That change has been made, so I'm not sure how easy it would be to change it, but the view being that people just found that an additional barrier to have to work through. The 20 minutes Garden Place, I've actually not really spoken to anyone who's utilised that. I think the view is I'm not sure what they could do by the time they've walked up the
It's to make
stairs.
sure that if you can't find a park, you get out for free. But
Can't that just be done by?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
No.
But yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah,
that the 20 minutes is used for anything that I've heard.
okay.
Look, thank you, Vanessa. You've been really clear, as you always are, and I am predicting that when we get to the parking report, we are probably going to have to move it to a workshop so that councillors can hear from staff what options we have on the table to fix some of these concerns that you've raised. So thank you very much. Thank you. Right, our next speaker up is Liam Carter. Liam, good morning. You're also very familiar with the process.
Have to be at this point.
You're almost a councillor. Perhaps you should put your hand up and run.
Not yet.
All
Good
right.
morning, all. Thank you for your time to let me speak. I'd like to provide feedback on a few things today. Firstly, the speed limit increases across Hamilton City, stronger parking enforcement, and the infrastructure improvement that you propose. Why I will never support speed increases as a cyclist. I know that we have to do it as most of our residents drive and hate cyclists. But let's be real, we can't increase speed limits if we don't have the infrastructure around those roads to hold cyclists and foot traffic. Why that speed is at that speed. Any speed limit increase should congest on roads with infrastructure improvements such as off-road cycleways, better crossings and safer intersections are in place. And the footpath and cycleways are up to standard. Many footpaths across Hamilton are in poor condition, uneven, with a slope for pedestrians, wheelchair users and cyclists. An example is the common drive you've asked to put the speed up, which is fine, but the footpath on the non-river side along that brick wall is sloped. Every time I ride, I feel like I can get up into oncoming traffic. And there's a massive risk. Investing in properly levelled, wide and well-maintained footpath and cycleways should be a priority before considering raising the speed limit. Take Rukura, safe separated cycleways, no housing, no schools or high foot traffic. I don't have a problem with that. It's safe, it's manageable, and you will never have the risk of killing a cyclist. Well, you shouldn't. Secondly, I want to talk about illegal footpath parking. It's been a serious issue across the city for many years. For wheelchair users, walkers, school users, school children, even young as 5 years old, making them walk out onto the road. Basically, I would like to see a report of numbers showing how many people you have fined over the last 12 months. I recently had a look at page 101 in the agenda, which shows the area of where and how many fines were given over the summer, I believe from December to Feb. And my thoughts were in areas like Tarapa, Flagstaff, Fairview Towns. Are you seriously telling me there were no cars fined? Is that because there were no illegal parking, or because your crew didn't find time to go and look in those areas? There are disabled people everywhere, no matter where they live, and there will always be illegal cars. Lastly, I would like to say I'd love to see improved parking management for events and sports facilitated. I believe HCC needs to work with event organisers and weekend sport teams to help reduce illegal parking. One example is the Hamilton Maris Rugby Club. I went past it the other day and saw at least 10 cars parked across the footpath as that grass ridge is used as the car park. Poor parking contributed to unsafe conditions for cyclists and walking. The council should work with all organisers, no matter what the event is, to make sure protocols are in place and they encourage other modes of transport. I urge the council to think about these matters. I urge the council to look into these matters. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to speak. Have a good day.
Great timing, Liam. As always, thank you very much. Your points were well made and clear. Thank you. Right, and our last speaker in the public forum is Peter Boss. Morning, Peter. And committee members, we had an email sent, Peter sent the documents to us. They've been circulated, I think, this morning. We'll get those circulated. I know I've got them, so. Okay, all right, we'll make sure those are circulated. So over to you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
We'll do that now.
I'm speaking on behalf of Living Streets Kirikoroa, which is a local branch of Living Streets Aotearoa. Living Streets advocates for people on foot and promotes walking-friendly communities and more face-to-face social activities along footpaths. Our objective is to increase foot traffic and to increase the visibility and safety of pedestrians. Item 8, we support the Council's investment in minor transport improvements. We particularly like number 33 Grey Street crossing. Recently I crossed Grey Street to have a coffee at Decaf Hub. It did not feel safe crossing Grey Street here. And number 34, the Cambridge Road crossing by the shops near Prescott Street. Also makes sense as it's often children that use local shops. Item 9, speed limit changes. In the current world, truth is variable. A decade ago, the New Zealand government planned to lower the speed on Cobham Drive to 60 kilometres an hour as part of the Southern Links business case. It then funded the report of the Cobham Drive, the building of the Cobham Drive Wairau intersection to a 60-kilometre design, which included rebuilding Cobham Drive to 60-kilometre design, as recommended in the Southern Links report. The current government returns to power saying it wants to fast-track the rest of Southern Links, but at the same time undoes what supports Southern Links business case by increasing the speed of roads designed for 60 kilometres an hour traffic to 80. This looks like US logic, where even though 3 years of real-world crash data shows that 80 kilometres an hour was unsafe, there was most likely social media comment that supports an alternative truth. We find it sad, but this is the reality we now have to live with in many levels of government. At the open days for Wairau Drive, Cobham Drive intersection, the project managers repeatedly confirmed the report's recommendations were adopted. We also find it sad that the speed limit changes include schools. The change only supports a walk catchment of 300 metres. At present, Waikato Regional Council and Hamilton City Council documents use 800 metres as walkable catchment. I know of German cities that use 600, bus stops are traditionally 400, schools are only getting 300, which seems an extremely short walking catchment. Also like to thank you for the work you're doing on parking enforcement, especially around footpaths. As a end comment, lack of pedestrian access to the CBD from surrounding neighbourhoods acts as a handbrake on pedestrian foot traffic. Living Streets asks that a map be produced focusing solely on pedestrian access to CBD from neighbourhoods bordering the CBD. Thank you.
Very much, Peter. As always, very clear. There are no questions, no. All right, thank you. There are no questions indicated. Okay, so that's our public forum done. We'll move on to item 5, which is the minutes of the 28th of November 2024 Infrastructure and Transport meeting. I'll confirm that those minutes are true and accurate record, seconded by Councillor McIndoe. Are there any issues arising from the minutes? There are none, so we'll put that to the show of hands. All those in favour? There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, just moving on to my chair's report. Just very briefly, obviously this is the first meeting of the 2025. Who knew that we would not be flying around in jets and cars, and you know, apparently that's what we were supposed to be doing in 2025, however we're not. I'm showing my age there, right? Louise is going, what's the Jetsons? It's a retro cartoon now, isn't it? So yeah, just welcome to the first of, I think, of 4 meetings that we have left for this triennium. So just 2 items, minor transport improvements. I just want to say it's been a very lengthy process, and I really do appreciate the roll your sleeves up workshop that we did, particularly the first one, and how we had the, although we've lost $41 million worth of NZTA funding, it also gave us an opportunity to create our own destiny on our transport network. And elected members that were able to attend both the workshops really embraced that, as did staff. And it was certainly something unique in the transport network sector. So I really do appreciate the time that we've spent on that. And while we have that item coming up, and we have a couple of motions on the table that have been circulated to committee members, I am not looking for anybody to start regurgitating a very lengthy and robust process that we have had, albeit there may be a few tweaks. So I want to thank staff and the elected members very much for that process. I think it was really good. The second there I've just raised, I've asked staff to have a session, whether it's in a briefing or in another way, just to follow up on how we ensure for our residents when transport projects are about to finish, on the ground, the tangible results, and when they finish, and how we make sure that the contractors delivering those projects meet the conditions. Over the summer period, I was contacted a couple of times by residents. I think one was the Rifle Range Road project, and I know many elected members have had residents reach out while that project was happening, and also the Grey Street one. And just, from residents that are really engaged, that have maybe had a letter saying this is what it's going to look like, and perhaps for whatever reason it was slightly different. So they're our troopers on the ground, and they've reported back. So I just want to understand exactly how we manage and those contractors so that they are delivering what the community expects and what we expect as elected members. So Tanya has embraced that, and that will be coming back. So that's really all I have. If there are any questions on the Chair's report, otherwise I'm happy to move that. Is that a hand for second? Oh, thank you. So Mangai Hill got in first, so that's been seconded. There are no questions. Fantastic. Thank you. So we'll just do that on the show of hands. All those in favour? There are none against. That's carried. Thank you. Still don't have Councillor Wilson. No. Good. All right. So next up in the hot seat. No, I'm just kidding. Is item 7 is an NZTA update. So I just want to warmly welcome Andrew Corkle, the Director of Regional Relationships for Waikato and Bay of Plenty. This is his first time formally with the committee. And if we can let Andrew and he'll introduce his team to present first and hold our questions, and then we can do that after. So we're in your hands, and welcome.
Perfect, thank you. Ngā mihi kia karakia, Wangai Norm. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to present to you today in this new role. So I'm, those of you who I haven't met, Andrew Corkle, Director of Regional Relationships at NZTA Whakakotahi, accompanied by my colleagues to the left of me, Susan Collins, Regional Manager System Design, and Roger Brady, Regional Manager Maintenance and Operations. And we've also got Steph Slattery, who may be known to some of you, who used to be an HCC staffer and is now back in our comms team, sitting up the back there as well. We've been briefed by HCC staff about some topics we need to cover today. I think there was a PowerPoint as well. Yeah. So we'll speak to those slides. Equally, if you have questions or other topics you'd like to discuss, we can cover those at the end, as the Chair mentioned. And noting that I was in front of you with another couple of team members a few weeks ago, or most of you, regarding Southern Link, so we haven't placed any of that discussion into the detail of this presentation today. And if we don't have the answer on a few things, we'll obviously come back to you after the meeting. On the agenda today, we'll talk about safety improvements, safety cameras, setting of speed limits, and some traffic management updates. But firstly, I'll give a little bit of an overview and a reconnection with where NZTA Whakakotahi is at, and noting the proactive approach you just mentioned before, Angela, regarding the impact of NLTP decisions in 2024. We as an agency are in delivery mode. We have a new CEO, Brett Glidden, who started a week or so ago, has already been with the organisation for many years, and a new minister leading the way alongside our board. We're tasked with working at pace on a multitude of BAU but also new initiatives across the country, and in particularly the Waikato Bay of Plenty, where we have a lot of investment into Roger's space in maintenance and operations, and into roads of national significance, which Susan is across. The breadth of the work that the agency does, for me personally, has been an eye. I came into the organisation in October last year into this role. Of note, a huge summer maintenance program. So Roger, to my right, is the guy that's probably annoyed many of you out on the network this year with a lot of the projects that are on. There's a huge program underway, most significant being the T Road to Waiuru, where there's been some really high-profile sites, including the Desert Road closure and a lot of media, but you know, things that have been really well managed by the team through all that profile as well. Improving road safety is a top priority for the agency. Important to note that how we invest in road safety has changed. We're delivering our 24 to 27 NLTP. That's NZTA's response and commitment to the government policy statement on land transport from 2024. Our NLTP is focused on delivering safe roading infrastructure via the roads of national significance, roads of regional significance, providing enhanced maintenance and highway resilience, as well as increased support for New Zealand police enforcement. Some funding is available for safety improvements, but that's only at the highest risk locations around the country. That means that several state highway improvement projects at various stages in planning have been reprioritised to meet our investment objectives and the funding that's available. So some projects have either been rescoped or are no longer progressing through to construction, but where they are no longer prioritised, any design and planning work already completed will be kept for a future reassessment. We have worked through notifying communities and impacted councils through that 24-27 NLTP release in September 2024. Hamilton, obviously impacted by this new focus, and we have been, in close contact with your staff through these last few months, and had high-level conversations last year regarding the NLTP outcomes too. The GPS, as you'll know, for us has an overarching priority of economic growth and productivity. There's significant new investment in the roads of national significance, roading improvements and maintenance, and key public transport projects that will help to deliver against those outcomes. A total of $1.9 billion is forecast to be invested in the Waikato region in the next 3 years through the NLTP period. but that does exclude some projects which we were working alongside HCC staff within the city boundaries. So it's for those reasons regarding our reprioritisation and refocus that the grey column up there on the screen, the Norton roundabout, the Dinsdale roundabout, did not secure funding in the NLTP. And the fourth one there, State Highway 3 Rains Road, has undergone detailed design and consents have been granted by Waipa and Hamilton City, but there is no funding for construction in this NLTP period. Happy to pause there because I'll get into other topics after this, so if there's any questions, happy to take them now, Chair.
I just want to welcome Councillor Wilson, has joined us on Zoom, and welcome Councillor Taylor, who has joined us for this item. So, yeah, are there questions so far on what Andrew's presented? Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Andrew and colleagues, for your presentation so far. Given that you've got the Norton Road roundabout up there at the moment, I know there's always the tension between what is council controlled and what is Whakakatahi, but the Norton Road roundabout has now become a major issue, particularly in the afternoons where the traffic is backed up, sometimes halfway down to the stadium almost, it seems. And a big part of the issue is the narrowing going under the railway bridge. Is this an issue that's even on your agenda? Is there a way of fixing it? It's causing huge rat running through some of the neighbouring suburbs of Mairora, and there are schools in that area. So I'm just wondering if it's even on the agenda for consideration, because it's just getting worse and worse every week.
Well, now it's on our agenda, and the fact that you've mentioned it, but in terms of funding to improve that intersection, there is no funding in this period. And don't know if you've got anything to comment on these. Jump in.
It's something we need to reconsider when we work through the next RLTP and LTP round.
Thank you. There's a similar problem backing down Whatawhata Road coming up towards the Dinsdale roundabout, particularly in the mornings. I've long been an advocate for signalised roundabouts which are very heavy, similar to what is common in other parts of the world, particularly Britain, but also over in Tauranga, the Welcome Bay area. Both of those roundabouts, Norton Road and Dinsdale roundabout, would be prime candidates, and I'd suggest so would 5 Crossroads. Again, is it even on the agenda? Because I'd like to keep pushing for it. I really believe it should be.
I mean, if those projects are picked up in the future, I imagine there are people, engineers that will scope up opportunities and options like that.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to hear that you're willing to look at it, because I think both for reducing congestion and making those roundabouts much safer for all road users, not just motorists, would be a really positive step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Andrew, for this update. In terms of some of those projects there, for example, Grey Street and Cobham Drive, it's a known serious safety risk, and there is significant concern from the community around that project. So when we look to the next funding round, how can council influence what projects are prioritised, and what kind of consultation will there be?
Did you want to cover that one?
I think it'll go through the normal process of submitting it into the RLTP, and then decisions are made on the priorities of the projects that sit in there, and then it needs to be compared, I guess, against the GPS settings.
Is it first instance, like, is there a way that we can jointly agree what their priorities are for Hamilton before it's put into the draft RLTP?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the process is yet for the next NLTP, but I imagine somewhere in there will be a good opportunity for community voice through council, through the staff interactions as well, and we have the Regional Transport Committee too, obviously.
More sort of global across the safety category, so that a lot of money has been spent in investigation, design, consenting, as you say. So all of that now, I'm not going to use the word wasted, but hopefully that consents lapse, etc., start all over again. What is the future trajectory for safety projects funding? You said the next
2027, when there's a review of the NLTP.
2027, so that's 2 years away.
Yes, though a review would start earlier than that. by the government of the time.
Right, so what is the best way for a city like Hamilton with a number of dangerous intersections to make a difference to that at the government level and a funding pot level, because this seems like
At that time, you mean?
in between, how do we address
I mean,
this issue?
continuing the advocacy you already undertake for your communities and having these discussions like
And
today.
if further accidents happen at these sites, does the benefit, it doesn't matter, because even if the benefit cost ratio of that, all the factors that you contribute to a place being safe or unsafe, wouldn't matter, there's no money, is there?
We don't have funding for the project specifically
That's
here. no.
right, so no matter what. So our best is to keep putting our foot on the throttle around more money into safety upgrades in the next NLTP.
I would suggest that's something that you have to talk about around this table.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Andrew, if you want to carry on.
Cool.
That's all the questions on that bit.
Thanks, team. We'll move on to the next slide. Thanks. So, safety cameras. We are making good progress transferring cameras from New Zealand Police to NZTA management, expected to transfer to us by July of this year, and our focus until at least mid-2025 will be taking over enforcement of existing red light cameras, of which I think most are based in Auckland. All North Island and a good percentage of South Island spot speed sites now have safety camera area signs, and you'll see those as you travel around the country. All fixed cameras will be signed when we start operating them, while mobile cameras will continue to remain unsigned. We have announced AccuSensus NZ as our mobile safety camera provider, so we've granted that contract, and we're working with AccuSensus and our road controlling authority partners with a view to commencing operations mid-2025. We're not considering at this stage allowing subsidised, which is what you'd know as the low-cost, low-risk funding for territorial authority-funded safety cameras at this point. The National Safety Camera Program is funded fully by NZTA across local road and state highways. We're currently prioritising safety camera locations based on the highest return for investment in terms of reducing deaths and serious injuries, with a focus on speed camera systems, as these have been internationally proven to offer higher reductions in those. We understand HCC is potentially interested in looking at opportunities to fund your own safety cameras, but there are several considerations we'd need to work through with regard to this, given we're kind of only stepping up the system this year ourselves and taking over those existing sites. So things like system integrity, processing costs, integration of different camera types and technologies with our own systems all need to be worked through. So this is on the NZTA safety camera team work plan for this year, but given the transfer process with police at the moment, it does mean it's unlikely that we'll be able to look at any of that until 2026 and have more detailed conversations through HCC staff and into our NZTA speed camera team as they move through that national program at the moment. And a note, re-speed cameras, safety cameras, is that the revenue we obtain isn't retained by us or controlled by us. They go to the government's consolidated fund as well. I'm happy to take any questions on that, noting I'm not a subject matter expert in safety cameras.
There's a raft of elected members wanting questions, so we're highly interested. Councillor Hutt.
Thank you. To ask the most boring question, when you say safety cameras, I can tell that you mean speed cameras, but does that include red light or any other kind of rule-breaking behaviour?
My understanding is red light cameras and speed cameras.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's the only two things it would cover?
Not necessarily, that's to my knowledge the main focus, yes.
Okay. And if we were to get to a point where TAs were putting in safety cameras, that revenue will still go back to the government?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes, but that's one of the discussions that needs to be worked through as part of the in 2026 connection with our team once they've onboarded a lot of the current speed cameras, safety cameras.
And if we were to put them in, the fines would still come from New Zealand Police or NZTA? They wouldn't come from us? Just like the issuer of the...
The issuer, I would have to clarify that exactly, yes.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Councillor Van Alsten?
Thanks, Andrew. Nice to see you again. And thank you for the update on the red camera position. It's something that we have, in fact, been really conscious of the behaviours of locals around red light running. However, there was also talk about point-to-point cameras and the safety cameras being used for that. And we know the risks in the Waikato and the higher rates of injury and death that we have on some of our state highways locally. Can you give us a bit of an update on what that progress might be and whether there is any intention to move to that?
So by the point-to-point cameras, you mean the average speed cameras,
Yes.
the one at the end?
Yeah.
One at the start, one at the end. I believe there's 3 to 4 sites nationally being trialled at the moment. Waikato, I don't think has one, potentially up in that Maramarua area. I know there was one being looked at in the Rotorua Lakes, but I'm not sure of the status of those at the moment.
Okay. I wonder if there's an opportunity to, in future report backs that you give us
They are
a bit of an update on.
proving to be the most valuable in reducing the deaths and serious injuries, is what the data has shown us. So happy to provide a further update on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Chair, thank you for that. Red light cameras, what's the sort of cost range? What do they cost?
That's a level of detail I don't have on hand, but I can come back to it.
Do you have a kind of, are we talking 100 grand? Are we talking?
I wouldn't
300?
like to guess
Okay.
that one.
All
Sorry,
right.
Councillor.
Can I ask you a sort of encouraging question? Is there an appreciation that when compared to the cost of redoing an intersection, maybe 5 million or something, that red light cameras could provide a cost-effective alternative, and it would give us a heck of a lot more bang for buck as a city and
I
probably as a
don't
country?
think I can provide an opinion on that at the moment, unless one of my colleagues who may be an engineer has an opinion. That would be a hard one to quantify.
Andrew, might I add, Councillor, as we learn more about the process of taking them over, the benefits, the way to apply them, we're always looking for more cost-effective ways to do things. So
Right,
if there's
that's
a clear
heartening.
benefit, then we'll explore that with a passion.
Great. And I'm hoping that you'll be taking away the message from us that we are highly interested in red light cameras and the cost efficiencies that and the bang for buck that it can get. So
Yes,
we can
and we've
send
taken that message from your
Thank you.
staff
Thanks,
over the
Chair.
last 6 months or so as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. Andrew, in terms of the changeover from police to NZTA, I understand the initial decision was 2019, and then we were told it would have been done by 2024. And when do we have certainty now as to when this handover will be complete?
Yes, July.
July of this year.
Yeah, the transfer from New Zealand Police will be
Okay,
complete. Yeah.
thank you. And in terms of, it was mentioned that council was considering whether we might fund some safety cameras, but is there any ability for NZTA within this funding round to fund cameras within Hamilton boundaries? For example, one of the intersections we discussed was Forest Lake, Lincoln Street, Avalon and Ellicott. Yeah.
We do have some small amount of funding nationally for safety cameras, but again, as I mentioned, it starts being prioritised to those highest risk areas. Couldn't comment as to whether there's one in Hamilton. I don't think there is, given the higher speed volumes there would be around the country.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, carry on.
Okay, next slide, thank you. Speed limit changes. There's been a lot of coverage about the new rule and implementation of this. It was a major topic of discussion at our Regional Transport Committee for Waikato yesterday, and there can be a lot of feeling wrapped up in the topic. with NZTA currently consulting on its own proposed reversals as a road controlling authority, my strongest advice to the committee would be that a fulsome submission is put into the process by the 13th of March, so a couple of days' time is the close off. There was 6 weeks of consultation on our state highway reversals. My understanding is there is an item in the agenda coming up regarding Hamilton cities. So I'm not looking to go into too much detail on this topic now, but I will stay for that item and be present if you need later on. Don't think I was... so we've got several roads of state highway which under the new rule auto-reverse without community consultation. You're aware of these, I'm sure. Cobham Drive, Lawn to Howell. We have had feedback on this one and some others across the country as well, where the community doesn't support those auto-reversals. So we have been asking for those people to send us their feedback too, not through the consultation process, which is on the ones that we actually can consult on, but to a speed management email address that I'll be happy to provide to your staff, so that we can consider what people are saying and whether or not we should be considering new reviews under the rule in some of these places. Similarly, the State Highway 26, Morrinsville Road, Silverdale auto-reversal is involved in a special group. We've had feedback about that auto-reversal too, and we're currently investigating options for further review, and I know that our team's been working closely with HCC staff, and that will play out into 2025 as that project continues on Morrinsville Road. While we as a road controlling authority can't change or revert a speed in a specified category on a state highway before 1 July, other than to implement the required reversals, the rule does allow us to instigate new reviews in the future for roads that aren't touched as part of this process. And we have processes under the rule allowing us to do this. So there is a list being developed in the background as well that will be approached post-July as resources allow. And those reviews will always require consultation as per the setting of speed limits rule too. I'm happy to leave it there in terms of speed limits and guided by you as to how much detail you want to go into now.
Yeah, I don't think we'll go into too much detail, given that it is an item on our agenda, Andrew, but I have just one question that I thought it would be good for the committee to hear. Yesterday at the Regional Transport Committee, Councillor Van Osten and I are on, and one of the questions raised by a regional mayor was, what would the consequences be if a council decided not to revert a road, the speed on a road? So it'd be great if this committee heard your answer to that.
Yes, so if that were to occur, the Director of Land Transport through NZTA would be writing to that council outlining expectations, I imagine. The rule does allow for NZTA to actually enforce the changes itself. Obviously that is not a preferred option for us.
And this is simply because NZTA is a road controlling authority?
Yes.
As councils are.
It's quite a complicated differentiation between the Director of Land Transport and NZTA and where that sits.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Doesn't look like there are any other questions on this one, so carry on.
I'm happy to hand over to Roger to talk about maintenance and operations.
Thanks, Andrew. It will give you a bit of a rest from the hot seat.
Thanks.
Look, I guess in terms of levels of service, as Andrew said, I've probably been responsible for annoying a lot of people around the Waikato this summer, but we have in fact completed the biggest rehabilitation program that's ever been done here, which is pretty cool. The level of service changes from direction from government is clearly about no potholes. To remove potholes, you have to fix roads, and not only have to renew them, but you have to rehabilitate them, so rebuild them. State Highway 1 down through Wairua, we've basically rebuilt the road rather than just fixed the top of it, if that makes sense. So the level of service is absolutely build the road to be fit for purpose. And we've had great support from the freight industry, despite the fact we've inconvenienced them hugely, because we're going to build the road back bigger, better, stronger, and more durable, which will lead to a better level of service over time. So it's very much a focus on no frills. There's questions around, I guess, vegetation, things like that perhaps is not as on point as it has been, but it's clear direction as to how we spend the money and where we spend the money. I guess what to expect from this maintenance season, which is just about over, which is good. But you can expect more of the same next season. That, you know, this isn't a flash in the pan intervention for 1 year. This is a clear policy over 3 years to maintain our roads and improve the level of service. There's also a focus on journey management. Kind of ties back into speed limits and other conversations, but there is a desire to enable people to move around the network in the most timeliest manner possible. It's not always possible not to have traffic jams, but again, the focus is on journey management as much as it is on road maintenance. So, happy to take questions around maintenance, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson? Very much for this. I'm interested in the maintenance of weeds along the state highway network. Could you please speak to this a bit in terms of the funding this round and whether it's sufficient to retain what residents would like to see in terms of a level of service for weeds?
Currently, it probably isn't. We've got direction as to say how and where we spend the money. So what we're doing this year is we're following direction. We're cutting back on what we call non-essential maintenance. If the weeds are not damaging the pavement, they might not look great, but right now we don't have a mandate to go and pull them all out. Mm-hmm. What we are doing is also gauging public feedback, public sentiment. At the end of this season, we'll stop, we'll reassess, and we might have a different look at it as to how we slice and dice the limited funding we have. Are we spending it absolutely the right place? Well, we made an assumption at the start of the season, we made some decisions, so we will review them. It's possible next year you might have a different emphasis, you might have less weeds, there might be a couple of other things that have got a reduced level of service. So we're really just working out as we go, Councillor.
Would you be happy to have a conversation with our council on the issue of the maintenance of weeds in terms of preparing then for that next year's budget?
Yep, Councillor, happy to have the conversation, you know, happy to take input. We are, as I say, constantly resetting, renewing, revising our strategy. It's a very big change from previous strategies. So absolutely, always open to input. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to support Councillor Thompson on that, and particularly over the summer periods, obviously. And while it's sort of talking about weeds sounds small, actually, there are big parts of our city along NZTA managed roads, and the compounding effect for residents is that the city looks really untidy. So it is it's in the top 5 complaints from residents every year. So yeah, if we can do better in that area or force some change in that area, it would be really good, because that's about looking after what we've got.
Yep.
Thank you, Roger, for that. I just have one other question just on, I'm not sure if this is your area, it kind of is, I guess. I'm just interested in if the rules, or there's been some policy change about how you sign for detours when roadworks are happening.
Well, I guess the next slide talks about engineering for temporary traffic management. It's kind of the same conversation.
Okay, great, thank you.
So happy to cover that off with the next slide.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically moving from a directive to a risk-based temporary traffic management. I'm not going to read the slide, but the gist of it is, how do we actually enable safer work sites? How do we enable a better user experience? And perhaps most importantly is, how do we keep the people working on the road safe? So it's quite a change in philosophy to a risk-based temporary traffic management plan. At the moment, we've done trials, we've done tests. The Desert Road, or in fact the Tiratuauru, the whole project's been done under the New Zealand Government for Temporary Traffic Management. And the benefits that we've seen in terms of, I guess, cost effectiveness, whilst there hasn't necessarily been a huge reduction in the amount of cost, direct cost of temporary traffic management, the real gains in the operational efficiencies, because the sites are safer, there isn't traffic typically transiting through them when you're trying to build it, and the quality control of the construction is actually greatly enhanced because you're not sort of building half a road at a time, you can build the whole thing cohesively. So from that point of view, I think the move to a risk-based temporary traffic management is actually a really good idea. Is there a policy in terms of changing how we sign detours, to come back to that question? Well, in essence, there's no clear policy because each detour is risk assessed based on its own merits, rather than rolling out, I guess, a stock standard solution which may or may not be a perfect fit. Okay, well, no questions?
Councillor Bidder has a question.
So with the risk-based traffic management, who carries the liability in terms of somebody saying that risk is okay as opposed to complying with a particular standard?
Yeah. The risk primarily sits with the contractor. In terms of how that flows through to PCBU, we still have to see the impact of that. We haven't had a case to test it. There is a responsibility of the road owner to have oversight and to raise concerns, but ultimately the decision doesn't rest with the RCA.
Yeah. And is this leading to a reduced number of road cones?
Yes.
And at the same time, you're improving the workplace safety?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mangai Hill.
Kia ora, Andrew. Kia ora tātou. Just a quick question around cultural health and safety. And we know that fixing potholes is a priority and safety is a priority, but cultural health and safety is a priority also, especially when there are areas that are culturally significant and or wāhi tapu or wāhi tonga and roads are built over them. Can you just explain the role that iwi have to provide a cultural health and safety arrangement with a number of projects, and obviously having worked on the CTP project in the roundabout, the whole area is quite significant in terms of excellence, and the spiritual context was quite important, and there's a sense of tapu or sacredness around that particular road. And so could you just explain
Look, I think it's fair to say that we're becoming much more aware and attuned to cultural sensitivities, to spiritual elements, to more than the physical, that we are taking great strides to consult and discuss prior to breaking ground, for instance. So basically, anywhere we're going to break the surface, we want to go and talk to people first, and talk to local iwi first. We're at the moment working through several MOUs with different iwi around the rohe, around the region, different rohes. So I think that it's a key change, and I think that this enables such discussions to take place far more proactively, because it is in fact part of a risk assessment, rather than, I guess, a stock standard sort of, hey, we'll just roll it out because this is what we do, right? This is what the regulations say, so we do it, whereas now we've got a different lens, which I think is, from my perspective, is really helpful.
Carry on.
That's
it.
That's basically it. Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to take any other questions.
If there are any other questions? No, I think that presentation was great. Thank you, Roger and Susan and Andrew. It's great to have you here, and hopefully we'll be able to have a semi-regular, and we don't expect you to rock up to every committee meeting. You've got an entire region to look after. But as Chair of Infrastructure and Transport, I'm really looking forward to, as I know the Chair of Strategic Growth is as well, a closer relationship with you as Regional Director as we move forward. And into the bright new future that is transport. So
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah, I appreciate coming along. This is a good opportunity to introduce myself to this forum, but also Susan, who's new in her role,
Yeah.
and Roger, who's been around a little while.
Yeah.
But just want to
Great.
acknowledge before we leave as well the relationship I've already observed in a couple of months with the HCC team and the proactive
Right.
nature that Tanya, Andrew, Robin, Gordon, the team engage through to us with and our staff at different levels. So thank you for having us.
That's great feedback. Thank you very much. All right, members, so this is simply page 17, just that we formally thank NZTA for presenting and that we receive his verbal report. So I will move that. Councillor McIntyre will second that. All those in favour say aye. There are none opposed. That's carried. Okay, let's see if we can get through the next one and then we'll break for morning tea. We may have to stop it possibly before debate if I think it's going to go a bit longer. So we are moving on to item 9. This is the speed limit changes. This is on page 31 and we have a motion from Councillor Taylor that we will pop up on the board. Yeah, well on my run sheet for some reason, on my run sheet we had 9 because NZTA may have stayed for the speed limit rule, but I see that they've left. He's outside. Okay, he may, yeah. All right, so Robin, over to you.
So this report deals with the changes that are required as a result of the Speed Limits Rule 2024, and it has impact on 2 sort of key categories. One is around school speed limits, and we've identified those that we need to change from a current permanent 30 to a variable, and they're listed in the report. And we have 2 other sites where the process requires us to lift the speed limit back up to where it was previously, that being Cobham Drive between Seddon and Normandy, and also in Ruakura Road between Wairau Drive and where the future East Transport Corridor goes up through where the traffic signals are currently. So for both of those sites, staff are proposing that we gain permission today to go out and consult on retaining the lower speed limit in order to continue to achieve the safety benefits that we have from those lower speed limits. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Robin. And just members on the board is Councillor Taylor's motion up there for us to have a look at, but we'll deal with questions of the report first, if there are any. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Robin. Ruakura Road is obviously the one I'm sort of just got some questions about. The work that's been done alongside in terms of the cycleway and walkway, I mean, that's extensive work, an extensive separation there now, isn't there, between cycling and...
Yes.
So, have you taken that into account with your proposed speed limit, with your proposal to keep it at 50?
Yes. So the key thing for this is that road was designed for the cars for a 50k speed restriction. So we do have 3 sets of traffic signals now in there, and they all have raised safety platforms as well, which are designed to be comfortable at 50, not at 60.
But it's a straight road, isn't it?
Parts of it, it's got bends in it. It's not all a straight road, that section.
Okay. Yeah. Look, thank you.
Bitter.
Robin, I am having a look at attachment 3, where there's some data on road safety. And some of it, I sort of need the explanations because it doesn't quite make sense. So the question is, how did you come up with some of these numbers? And I'll explain point out the detail. So if we look at the Ruka Road crashes in the 5-year period from 2018 to 2023, you've got 5 minor injury crashes, which is a rate of 1 per year. Since 2023, we've got 2 years where there's been 2 minor injury crashes, which is 1 per year. Yet you're predicting an increase in the number of minor injury crashes if the speed limit is increased. Can you explain how you got to that increase?
So basically, NZTA have developed a tool which we have to use for this calculation of this cost-benefit calculations. So we basically have to put in the information on what were the crashes in the period prior, what the proposed change to speed limit is, and that gives us the information. So it will always predict an increase in crashes if there is an increase in speed limit.
Right.
And
So
there is good evidence to show that is a relevant assumption.
So it's got nothing to do with the actual road design and use of it. It's that the program is programmed to show an increase in the number of crashes.
Correct, because there's
Right.
good evidence to show increase in speed increases the likelihood of crashes. Yes.
Right. So can we say that this is all garbage? Because it's a case of garbage in, garbage out, and that the program is programmed to produce a result?
That's not appropriate way to talk staff.
Language understanding orders, leader members must respect staff presenting items. So you will withdraw that word. Thank you.
Right, so we'll move on. Estimated impact per vehicle and seconds per vehicle of speed limit is raised. You've got an effective 0.05 seconds per vehicle in the time saving of increasing the speed limit. Could you explain how that number was created?
Again, all of the information in this table is generated using the NZTA standard template.
So the NZTA template doesn't use mathematics?
I'm not aware of the background that sits behind that and how it calculates it.
Right.
We've been told the rule requires us to use the template, and we are following the requirements.
Then I won't repeat the word, but it is correct. We'll look forward to the debate.
Councillor Casey Cox.
Thank you, Robin. Just a question on the way the road, the Ruakura Road has been designed. You said for 50. I think I noticed the raised safety platforms, you have to slow down to 40 anyway, or it's recommended.
Yes.
So I guess, can you just explain, going from 60 to 40, is that a huge difference, or like?
I guess it is that differential of 20 k's, and I think most people achieve a 10k reduction reasonably simply.
Right.
It will at the end of the day, it will be a comfort thing if they don't slow down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Austin.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for the list of presumably schools on page 32. Is that correct, with the variable speed limits? Is the majority of those in those school zones that have to have the variable limit during the times at the beginning and the end of the school day?
Yes, so these cover the sites where we have to remove the permanent 30 that's currently in place and put the variable, so yes, in place before and after school. In the case where we have electronic signage, there is the ability for the school to utilise that during the day if they have, say, a school trip crossing the road or, that sort of thing. So the electronic does give them that additional.
Are there many schools that have that electronic signage?
There are quite a few sites around the city already, and we're proposing a few more in here for those busier sites.
Yep. Okay. But there's no standardised speed. If it's during the school bell time, it's 30, but outside of that, it could be 30, it could be 40, it could be 50. And I wonder about the confusion for motorists because of that.
Yes, I guess we've tried to look carefully for sites where we think that we're likely to get that confusion, and that's one of the reasons why we've put some electronics into these sites. Majority of them will have either very clear sort of be in that clear 40 sort of environment for the rest of the day, or they will be in busier locations. So we've tried to cater for that, I guess, potential confusion by putting in some electronics in the proposal.
Okay. Thanks, Robin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Robin, can you help me just to understand, if we go with Councillor Jeff's motion, and it's, do we still go out to consult for Ruakura?
I believe Councillor Jeff is suggesting that we don't, but I'll let him clarify that.
Yeah, I'll ask Councillor Tay to explain this motion.
Thank you. Amy has very kindly kind of turned my gibberish into something that makes sense overnight. But I actually, the intent, I've thought about it more this morning, sorry to make things harder, but I actually think it's fair that we would consult still with the community on it. And so at least we can get feedback. But I guess, so my position is that if our starting position was 60, but we still ask the community what they thought, it seems fairer. I don't know how you can deconstruct and construct that, Amy.
Approves consultation for both.
Let's, because we're going, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And let's break for morning tea so that can be worked out. So basically, Councillor Taylor, you, in the consultation document, you'd be saying council's preferred option is to stick to the 60.
Yes.
But what do you think?
Yes.
Yep, that sounds sensible. Okay, great. Let's break for morning tea and come back at 10 past. And there is baking by Councillor Hutt and myself. Although I was not impressed with my cake. back. It's a very cute bell. It's very polite. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. All right, so I think there might be, I've just got a couple of questions, but so there's a motion on the board that takes care of the appropriate things in the staff recommendation, and then just Councillor Taylor, if you'd like to tell us again what there's been a couple of tweaks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair O'Leary. We've gone back to where we were before, thanks to poor old Amy, long suffering. There seemed to be a feeling amongst councillors that actually they supported some councillors that they supported the 60 and didn't actually see much point in actually consulting on that particular thing. In fact, it just felt like over-consultation. So we've sort of gone back to the position of consulting on Cobham, but not consulting on this, and just going back to 60.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, the other questions, I just have one particular question. Robin, just on the schools and the list of 12 schools that's in the report that we are being forced to change back to variable speed limits, is that correct? We simply have no option for those 12 schools?
Correct.
And we were the first, and I mean the report says that we were the first in the country to tackle all of the speed around our schools, weren't we? And can you remind, did that come about, that's been embedded for quite some time, hasn't it?
So we had worked through a process over a number of years of getting 40 Ks outside of all of our schools, and some were, that was a mixture of electronic, variable and permanents. And then last year we made the move to move them to 30, both again electronic and permanent. And
did we have, when we moved them to 30, did we, what sort of, just high level, what sort of response did we get from the schools?
There was really good support for that, and we had done quite a lot of consultation, obviously out through the schools and their communities and that sort of thing as well. So yes, there was good support for that change.
And I noticed in the report we're not going to be reconsulting with the schools. I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but is that really because there's kind of no point? We have to make these changes on the roads outside schools?
Yes. The rule doesn't require consultation in this case. It does require consultation for other changes.
Yeah.
But it is fairly much a fait accompli. It's something that we need to work through. We're trying to time it for the start of term 2 so that we can do the comms and messaging through the schools and make sure everyone understands those changes coming into effect.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Councillor Pike.
Thanks, Chair. Look, thanks for your work on this report, Robin. For Ruakura, if we're not to go out on consultation, has there been any pre-consultation with Innovation Park as a major user of that road, or?
No.
So we've got no general understanding of the...
I really needed permission via this meeting to start any consultation talking about speed limit changes, so that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious if we had any initial conversations with them. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin. We had a submitted this morning, Peter Boss talk about the distance of the speed limits outside of the schools, and he said the government's one, we've got here 300 metres, but council had taken an approach where we went out further. Are we going to, in some cases, have to constrict that area outside of schools?
So the signage that we put in place, excuse me, for the schools basically fits that 300.
Okay.
We did have permanent outside that area, but we've had legal advice to say that's fine.
Okay.
So we are in compliance. Once we put these changes through, we will be in compliance with the law.
And are the variable speed signs that are electronic more effective at slowing people down and getting them to notice the speed limit than the permanent kind of static?
Yes.
Do we have the ability to, I mean, how many of these will be able to be variable versus the static signpost? Electronic, yeah.
Versus, in the schedule, I'm just trying to find it. Attachment 1, which is page 49, we've indicated where we're putting in the electronic signs. So as I said, we've tried to pick those streets where we think it's either got higher traffic volumes, or in some cases where by the time we worked out all the signage that we needed to put in place, it was going to become a bit of a lolly scramble of signs. So we've tried to pick those locations. So you'll see there's still quite a few there that will have the static sign in place.
Okay. And will we monitor them, and if there's an issue with, clear issue with compliance, be able to then assess whether electronic signs might in the future be something to consider?
That's certainly something we can do if you desire. Obviously at this stage, the funding that we have, once we've completed this project, that will be the intent, the finish of that. But yes, it's something we can keep an eye on and report back.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Van Osten.
Robin, you just mentioned the funding. Can you just remind the meeting about the cost of those electronic signs?
The electronic signs are about $10,000 each. By the time it really depends on the location and the work that we need to do, we've got a few spare bits and pieces that we're also cobbling together to minimise the costs for this one, this particular rollout. But,
And so that's just to install them, that's correct, eh? So
yes, because you end up with, you've obviously got 2 of the signs, and then you've got to have, we had the choice of either being solar or hooking into the power supply. The solar is cheaper. Hooking into power supply is quite difficult because the street light feed is only at certain times when it's night time, which doesn't work with when we want the school signs to work. So it's hooking into that bigger system.
Right.
So.
And what do we know about the maintenance of them and the reliability of them? I've been past them before and they're just a flashing mess.
Yes, so we've been doing a progressive upgrade of our signs. The initial signs that we had put in were standalone units. They required the schools to actually turn a switch on and off in the office at the start and end of that period. As we've been upgrading them, the first thing we did was change them so they didn't have a set face on them, because this is part of the difficulty NZTA now have, is they have to put new faces on the signs. So we upgraded them. They're now basically we can talk to them electronically, and they talk to us. So the signs let us know when they're not well, when they're having problems and malfunctioning, and it enables us to pre-program the start and all those times we work with the schools, so we know what their calendar looks like if they've got teacher-only days and that sort of thing. All gets put into the system.
And then what about if they have other activities that are happening around the school? You say that they don't any longer have the switch in the office. Do they then have to report that to council?
They let us know, and we've got a team of 3 out working with the schools, so they let us know and can get that electronically set up to work as well.
And is all of that $10,000 per sign cost on council?
So at the moment, we have funding through the Green program, which elected members approved in November last year.
Yes.
As 100% council funds. The government has announced funding assistance for the changeover for this, so we have applied to NZTA for the costs and are hopeful of getting our normal 51% subsidy, co-investment. We've yet to have that confirmed, but we'll continue to work with them on that, and as and when that's landed and we've got everything sorted, then we'll report back to committee on the savings, hopefully, that we make as a result.
Right. Thank you, Robin. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just following on Councillor Max's questions, I'm keen on them and I don't want to jinx them, but I'm just wondering, do they sometimes attract vandalism?
Any signage.
I
yes.
realise they do, because other signage is attracting quite a lot of vandalism, but do the digital ones or electronic ones, have they been vandalised at all?
Yes, all of our stuff out on the network we have problems with. We have the variable message trailers sometimes get picked up and taken for a ride somewhere, and some of the parts taken off them. It's the reality, I guess, of having stuff out on the road network, unfortunately.
As I say, I'm keen on them, but I just think we need to be aware of that, because what's the cost of a static sign by comparison?
They're in between the 500 and 1,000, but they're not also... some people decorate those as well.
Yeah,
so.
I realise they're subject to vandalism as well, but there's obviously a huge variance in cost, but don't take that as a negative, because I do like them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that seems to be all the questions. Thank you, Robin, for a very clear report, and we look forward to the consultation coming back on the one item now. So, Councillor Taylor's motion is up on the board. I don't have any other motions, so we will move to Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Larry, I'll just speak to it very briefly. Robin, thanks for the report, and much of what is presented in the report I agree with. The variable speed limits around schools, the Cobham Drive suggestion from staff, subject to consultation. But I respectfully disagree with staff on Ruakura Road. I think sticking to 50 k's on Ruakura Road is wrong, and I think we should go with the reversal being proposed. It's a wide road. There's an excellent cycleway and walkway on the side, which gives clear separation from motor vehicles. And I can't think of any other road really in Hamilton that is so well serviced by separated facilities. There's not a lot of driveways in the area. It's a pretty clear run, and I have to admit I drove it on Saturday, and to be honest, I struggled to stay under 60, let alone 50. And sure, that's not great practice from me, but it does feel quite free. So look, I'm not unsympathetic to lower speed limits, and I do support what staff are saying on Cobham Drive. I just think we need to be careful when we pitch these limits. I think it's important to try and pitch it in as realistic a manner as possible. And I just feel that it needs to pass a kind of common sense test for me. And I think if we don't, it can lead to non-compliance and can lead to a lack of trust in signs. And I actually think the community actually appreciates it when we are realistic in the way we pitch these sorts of limits. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you. Firstly, just thank you to staff for all of the work that you've done on this. It is frustrating that we're spending money to redo a bunch of work around speed limits, and this really does show when governments keep chopping and changing that it costs everybody, ratepayers and taxpayers, money, and so yeah, it is a very frustrating thing to have to be responding to this. I support continuing with the 60k speed limit in Cobham. You can see from the data that actually crashes have reduced on that network following those speed reductions. It's right outside of our world-class beautiful gardens, and we need to keep people who are travelling to the gardens safe. I do think, though, I am supportive of the 60 k's on Ruakura. We have amazing cycle and pedestrian infrastructure on that road. There's probably none better in the whole city. And so I do think that we've already catered for the safety of pedestrians and cyclists and vehicles. And I think that with the design of that road, it's reasonable to have a 60k limit for people travelling by car. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bidder.
Numbers are important. It is what we use to base our decisions on. The Ruakura Road decision is a risk-reward choice. The risk comes from a program that is programmed to exaggerate risk. The reward is a time saving per vehicle. The figure given has been reduced by a factor of 220. I think we should go out for consultation on Ruakura so the public can see and question how we make bad decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Van Osten.
Thank you. Again, reiterate Councillor Thompson's congratulations to the staff. We made lots of changes to our roading speeds and which were well supported. And you heard Robin talk about the schools and the support from not just staff and principals, but parents as well. And our children have enjoyed the safety around their areas because of that. It worries me that the changes that were introduced through the speed limit changes from government were mostly around a promise through their campaigning at the last election, rather than being evidence-based, rather than coming out and talking to us about what our community wants. And that's hugely disappointing. And it puts, our most vulnerable users of the roads outside of our schools at the most risk, and it's disappointing. We all know that the activity at school doesn't start and stop with the school bell 35 minutes beforehand and 20 minutes after. It may seem reasonable, but actually activity happens right across the day in those schools. Electronic signs may offer a good way to be able to highlight to drivers that there are changes happening. But again, it's difficult. I know certainly for Hamilton West School, they have a school pool that is outside of their school footprint, and children cross that road in the summer all throughout the day. So having to make those permanent changes into variable is super disappointing, and we're required to comply with the law around that, but doesn't mean we have to like it or that we're taking the right approach in doing that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Southgate.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the work around this. I have to say speeds on our roads is a hyper-political issue and always has been. And just want to make the point that in the first instance, it has been successive governments over time that required us to reduce our speeds and to provide for greater road safety under specific requirements. And now it's government, of course, that are saying, we're going to go backwards on that and increase the speeds back up. And it's a good chance to have a look at what's working and what's not, and the data. I just do want to make a point, though, that everything that happens like this comes at great cost to council. We reduced all the signs. We did that once. Now we're putting signs, we're having to redo signs and put them to a higher speed limit, get digital cameras and the like. The trouble is with these changes that come, they don't come with any funding. And we have already seen, as Chair O'Leary said, massive cuts to our budget from the NZTA bucket. So we're getting less, again, to do more, less to do more. And that seems to be the case across multiple governments. So I'm not laying this at the current government. I'm just saying that local government is always the loser when these changes come down without the corresponding funding. Something's got to change about that, because our ratepayers bear that cost of constant change. The good news about these speed limits is that we're all on the same page. We all accept and believe that our schools are the priority zone, and that where children and their families walk every day should be safe, and I still stand by that. Some of the other roads that are straighter, wider, safer can lend themselves to higher speeds. We all know, however, that that's fine on the straight bit of the road. It's when it gets to the nearest roundabout or intersection, or there's something else coming into that road, that's where the danger starts. So, but I'm going to support this, although I have to, one last final thing, I would have preferred to have the consultation remaining in it, but outside of that, I'm happy to go with the motion.
Thank you. We're enjoying, Councillor Wilson, we're very much enjoying the lovely view wherever you are, and thank you for continuing to attend via Zoom.
I know the rules that I have to have the camera on, so I'm feeling a bit of an idiot.
No, we're enjoying it. We are listening intently to the debater, but we are enjoying the lovely weather. Yeah, Councillor Huata.
O tēnā tātou, tēnā koe tānia koutou ko tō tima, Gordon, Robin, mua koutou mahi, thank you for your work. I will support the motion. However, I just want us to think about the projected development that's still to take place on Ruakura Road. With the housing development, Tūmata Rise, it's just going to increase over the next decade or so, so there could be a need perhaps to revert back again. I too struggle to go to 50 because I was used to the 60, and I'm trying to get from Frankton to Tauwhare every morning, so I'm like 50, not 60, Maria. However, there is huge congestion there too with the university, and we've also got the retirement village on that road, so just to consider the projected developments and the nature of that road in the morning and the afternoons and throughout the day. I actually support the variable speeds for schools during school time, and just speaking with Robin during the break, that the schools have the ability to be able to manage that and get their speeds electronically inputted at those peak times when they need it, because outside of those peak times, and as a person that's travelling to 3 or 4 schools every day, especially on Silverdale Road, there are times when it's not needed. So, kia ora tātou.
Thank you. All right. I support the motion. I think it's a sensible, pragmatic decision, and I support it wholeheartedly. I am going to focus right in on schools with my debate, because the policy change that this government has put through is, in my view, gambling with children's lives with variable speed limits outside schools. Roads don't care about which party is in politics. The facts are, when speeds go up, so do injuries, and this report and other reports that I've dived into in the weekend confirm that. When speeds stay low, kids stay safe. It really is that simple. We know that a pedestrian hit by a car at 30 kilometres an hour has a 90% chance of survival, but at 40 kilometres an hour that drops by 30%, and yet this is government policy. Our littlest citizens will soon have a 30% reduction in their chance of survival outside their schools, and I'm not okay with that. The AA Speed Adaptation Report, which is 2023, which I dove into in the weekend, said that drivers struggle to adapt to changing speed environments, especially in familiar environments. And we've heard a self-confession from 2 elected members today about them struggling to stay within the speed limit on Ruakura. The study found that most drivers rely on habit and road design to determine their speed. And if a road feels fast, they drive fast. By shifting school zones to variable limits instead of permanent ones, we are creating more confusion and making compliance harder for the driver. This will put our children at risk, and this is what I'm worried about. The report also highlighted a phenomenon called the memory effect, and those of us that are familiar with Sam Charlton from the Waikato University's work, we know about the memory effect. And this is when drivers default to previous speeds that because they don't consciously register the changing of speed signs. My point is, if a school fluctuates between 30 and 50 or 30 and 40, even during school hours, the people driving will associate the speed on that road with what they do most of the time. And this is what variable speed limits are going to do. I'm worried that when the first serious accident happens, who will be responsible? It won't be the government picking up the pieces, it'll be the city, the families and the child's school community, and that's simply unacceptable. But I hope that I'm wrong. Councillor Taylor, your right of reply. Great, thank you. All right, we'll do that on the board. And Councillor Wilson, you can just do a show of hands. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, those in favour. And Amy will call out the vote. Thank you.
The motion is carried, noting that Councillor Bidder is dissenting.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. All right, I know we're sticking to our run sheet, I guess. So the next item up is item 10. This is the Thomas Road, Hukanui Road intersection improvement options. And this is a result of Councillor Kesh way back in the LTP. So, Robin, over to you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. So, as you indicated, this was a report that was requested through the LTP process. I'll take the report as read, noting that we're proposing putting some funding into the unsubsidised transport program, which is the item that follows next. That's why we put this one before it, to do some further investigation and to then have some good data and information to feed into the next LTP process. But I'm happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
Robin, are there any questions on the report? It's quite clear. I'm happy to move the staff recommendation, seconded by Mayor Southgate. Looks pretty clear. Yep, no questions? All right, thanks very much, Robin. So we can do that if Councillor Wilson has retired? Okay, so let's do that on the show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Oh, sorry, Mayor Southgate. Oh, okay. All right, that's been carried, thank you. Okay, now what we've all been waiting for. Item 8, unsubsidised minor transport improvements program. Just quickly, as per my email, we've got some motions circulated. We have had a collaborative process on this. I'm sure I'm probably taking words out of the staff's mouths here. So any questions for particular clarity, but we don't want to jump into the weeds on the ins and outs of every project. So, Robin, unless I've just taken the wind out of your sails, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, happy to take the report as read, noting that we've had a couple of really good workshops with elected members. Primarily this is around how elected members would like to assign the funding that they decided to retain, and we have already approved, or you have already approved part of that funding through the Green program, and happy to take questions and to try and work out a final motion.
Right. Yes, and committee members, so we'll do Councillor Thompson and Councillor Taylor's motion first, and then we'll go to Councillor Hutt's motion, which I'm seconding after that. So let's pop the first motion up on the board. It has been circulated via email. And go to questions, Ms Southgate.
Thank you. To be honest, I got a bit confused with all the motions flying around last night and so on, but I can see the chart, and in general, I'm just going to talk to it in general, no matter the little bits. Now, I've a particular interest in the connectivity of pedestrians and cars and the movement through our CBD, which leads me to ask about Wheelie Place. Now, can you just refresh me in terms of the timing of the work that we will do around the new Pullum Hotel, down just however many metres away that is? Pullman.
So at this stage we don't have a time frame. That's the developer will be doing that work, not us.
But I understand it's within 18 months, isn't it? That's
order.
what we had at the Economic Development Committee.
Yes, so it's our understanding that that's the
the proposal that's going forward, which there's a report coming to council, I think on the 20th of March, which outlines some of the detail around the licence to occupy process for that.
Yeah.
So it could be in the vicinity of 18 months to 2 years, depending on when they open.
You know, speaking with the developers, I don't think it's that far out. And there is a little bit of work that we have to do around the edges on our property, on our land, as I understand.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, so he's doing it all, paying for it all?
Correct.
So in terms of that...
Sorry, me, Paula, just to clarify, the little bits that we do is around the parking restrictions on the street. That's
right.
That's the only bit.
Some
It's
minor,
not any physical,
minor adjustments.
very, very minor. Yes.
In terms of connectivity of that hotel, what is your view of the place that the Worley Place upgrade could take in that, in terms of moving people from the hotel through to the theatre?
So it's staff's view that people will have two options to come from the Pullman. They'll either come through Worley and if they're going towards the entertainment area, restaurants or the new theatre, they'll likely to go through Garden Place, so connect through from Worley, or they'll go along Ward Street and then Victoria Street.
Okay. So apart from the fact that, forget the cobbles, because they're the minor bit, that's a health and safety issue that gets regularly fixed every couple of years by picking them up, putting them down again. Apart from that, what are the benefits of getting that done earlier to create that flow from the hotel through?
So some of the work that staff did following the November meeting is we took the opportunity to work with the Parks team, who are also looking at the wider Garden Place space. As also we have the cobblestones outside the main building here, which is a separate facilities run project. So we took the opportunity to look at some design to bring that whole space together in one cohesive look and feel. So it starts to yeah, like I say, bring that together as one.
And
so some of the benefits of that timing is to get it all done at once.
So this timing matches, the further out timing matches, because it's yellow.
Yes.
It's not green, it's yellow, so it's further out.
So option one that we had provided in the November meeting was based on concrete and concreting the area. Option two, which we brought back to the council briefing in February, was the full cobble design, which is significantly more because of the design, but it brings in that, it ties it all together. And it makes it look like it is a shared space. Option three, which is also now being proposed, addresses some of the tidy up that's required down there in terms of the street furniture and planting, and still enables that to be a safe zone for pedestrians and vehicles to share, because we still need to have some, I'm talking like an engineer, which is dangerous, but some delineation between the two people, two activities.
Thank you, and I'm really grateful for the work and thinking that's being done in this space. So, Robin, that option three will make it clearer through the design lines to pedestrians where and cars alike, where the pedestrian element is versus the car element is?
Well, for a shared zone, the pedestrian element is the full length.
And that's not working very well, but how will that improve upon that?
So basically what option three does is it's as per that option two design with the look and feel, but just taking out all of the, not doing the cobblestone work. So it's doing those larger garden planted areas, putting in more pots and trying to really reinforce that it's a pedestrian area.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult, but what in your opinion, as the experts on this, would make it more organic, and more explicit to the cars that pedestrians have some prominence in this area too? Because at the moment, quite often we have to give way to cars, almost always.
Yes, I guess that's you could do education promotion. It's a difficult area for that shared zone, given that it's a crossroads of pedestrians going one way and cars going the other, and most shared zones actually have tall buildings, and most people walking along it, along with the cars. So
Oh, is that right?
it's a tricky spot to solve. The main thing is that the speeds are low.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Don't appear to be any other questions. I just had one from our finance team. Hello. I just want to confirm, and I thank the mover and seconder of the motion. I think they responded to my fears, but just in terms of where is it? Oh, of the. Do I have a new piece of paper? No. Where is it? Where is it? That's weird. It's gone now. I was just concerned around the wording of the motion saying we were taking money from CapEx and transferring it to OpEx. My understanding is, well, I know that that's against our financial strategy. So the new wording, does that relay my concerns around the financial strategy? When it's proposed to make a savings and then simply allocate a budget for operational. Is that a better way to do it from the finance perspective?
Appreciate the query.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the decision on when to bring it in, yes, can be guided from a recommendation through finance and monitoring.
Yeah.
The challenge is, I suppose, this is not as simple from an accounting reporting perspective as simply moving between the two.
Yeah.
The decision ultimately probably is guided by, firstly, what outcomes you're achieving from the investment versus what you were trying to achieve as CapEx. This is projected as a year 3 decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, the current financial projections we provide probably give you context on whether to go ahead with this investment in year 3 or not.
Yeah.
Sorry to be detailed.
Yeah.
You recall we've got a projected positive performance in the current 24-25 year.
Yes.
And the deficit that was presented.
Yeah.
However, in the council meeting on 11th of February, we indicated that our projection was in line with the long-term plan for both 25-26 and 26-27.
Yeah.
This will throw that out, but what I would point to is in the scale of this expenditure relative to obviously the revenue, it would not have a significant impact.
Okay.
But at this point in time, it's not able to be said that it won't have any impact because we're still exposed to significant volatility in inflation and assumption rates.
Yeah.
A conservative response would probably be to consider it in the 26-27 annual plan setting process rather than direct it now. So hold it until you get to that point to make the decision on whether this spend is appropriate or not.
Yeah.
As worded, it can proceed.
Okay.
But I'm just saying there's a lot of complexity around that decision
Yeah,
on whether to do it.
and I understand that. My main concern, which they've addressed and you've now addressed, thank you, Gary, was it appeared through the wording that it was basically taking debt and turning debt into cash to achieve an operational maintenance budget line.
We've essentially it is operating related and cash related. So
Yeah.
the cash position we have achieved through the projection of offsetting the local road funding.
Yes,
Is balanced and a positive. So we do have a positive cash benefit that theoretically you could offset against this.
Yeah.
However, that is not matched in the balancing the books position.
Yeah, okay, no, that's very clear, thank you. So, Councillor Thompson, do you want to just outline what you've sort of done in a really plain English way?
I think I sent an email which summarised it.
You did,
earlier, so I don't
but
think...
for online viewers too. So.
Okay, so for online viewers, hello. There are a few changes to what was originally in the agenda. We're reducing the scope of 2 projects, reducing the scope of Worley Place and the costs of that, and also the scope and costs of Collingwood. And also at this stage removing the Tristram Street cycleway project, and we've added in some other elements including some improvements in Barton Street in year 3, additional trees and improvements on the streets we are doing up, Alexandra, Collingwood, and we're proposing 150,000 of operational funding for year 3 of the LTP to continue our tidy up work around the CBD, which can't be funded by CapEx.
What you've essentially done is you've moved around some of the things, but within the CBD
within the CBD funding envelope, and there's a overall saving of just under $500,000 in cash as such, which we won't be spending after that rejig. Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. So that's up on the board. So let's move into debate. Oh yes.
Sarah, just with regard to the answers that we've received from our CFO in terms of C up there, can you just give the committee some understanding about what you're wanting to achieve with that
So
motion?
the reason why initially the intention with this whole package is to tidy up the CBD, and there's a lot of it's looking really tired. But part of that means replacing furniture, renewing some gardens, fixing things. So in all that kind of maintenance and renewal of things like Central City benches and rubbish bins and things actually all is operational costs. So that's to do that tidy up work and continue to do it up till the LTP, when we can review our overall operational expenditure for looking after the Central City, that tides us over for that final year 3. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. I can see why cleaning up gardens or polishing the floor might be operational, but if we're replacing posts or kit, is there that hard and fast OPEX?
We were advised
around that.
The furniture. Well, so maybe we could ask finance to actually answer this, but advice to us was that things like replacing furniture was operational, and also, for example, Hood Street lampposts, as an example, may need some strengthening work. So we're not replacing them, we're fixing them, and that's again operational. Is any other comments from staff?
I think basically if it's sort of like for like replacement, is renewals, it comes under that OPEX maintenance type heading. David.
Can I clarify? In general, yes, when you're doing maintenance replacements, but we apply the accounting standards which direct us on whether we believe we've created an asset that was already being depreciated, in which case it's CapEx. So unfortunately the standards mean it is not as simple as simply saying this is OPEX and this is CapEx. Yeah. We do have to look at each one in its circumstance and based on its materiality. So in general, I would say yes, it's OPEX, but it may be subject to shift based on interpretation.
So there's a very clear answer.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Southgate?
Just in terms of the OPEX budget, I understand the intention here and it's as clear as it can be. I guess we've jiggered this group of projects around to, cut our coat according to our cloth. Is there no opportunity to do likewise with other areas of budget renewals within OPEX? This is contained within this project, if you know what I mean. It's additional OPEX, but presumably we could delay some other renewal or whatever within the OPEX budget, and therefore not have it as an addition, but have it as a. Oh, we can do those. We can do that. We can make adjustments.
It's your decision. You need to say what you want to stop.
Well, I'm just asking, is there any scope for that? I mean, if we're focusing on the CBD, for example, and there's some renewal in another area that could be put off a year to allow this to be done, is that possible? I suppose it's possible, we just have to identify where, right?
I suppose for context, Mayor Paula, if I may, Deputy Mayor, is our renewal budget in transport looks after the maintenance of our roading network and our footpaths, and we allocate that money based on the need and the repairs that are needed. The less money we have available in that budget, the less work we're able to achieve.
Oh, I get that.
And it's a very fine balance of timing to make sure that the roads aren't deteriorating before we put that investment in. So, but as Lance said, it's a decision of council to be made.
There is a little bit of fluidity in budgets, isn't there?
Can I just mention, as a CE, I went through a lot of this when I got back after Christmas with Tanya in a whole lot of detail, and the team did a really good job summarising it for a lay person like me. I think we're challenged in this space, and I get where you're coming from, Mayor Paula, and I'll be the first one to say anything that affects my CE KPIs worries me around balancing the books and that sort of thing, but I think there's a need in the CBD, but I also think you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, and then another part of our network actually suffers. So, you know, I think with everything that we've been faced with, that, you know, it's difficult to start chipping away at other parts of our maintenance budget on the transport network, and I think we've all seen examples of that. And you know, one is around the mowing and the weed spraying sort of regime and that sort of thing, where we get a whole lot of complaints before Christmas. If I'm honest, that's probably a little bit undercooked, as we know, and so, you know, we've been talking to Tanya about how do we become as efficient and effective as possible, but, you know, we can only squeeze the lemon so hard.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I thank you for that. It does answer my question, but I mean, it's possible, but it's not desirable, is the answer to the question, isn't it? All right, and I think it's a good governance question to ask.
Thank you. Right, so Councillor Sarah, let's move into debate.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, so we're just talking about Central City. Central City is looking really tired, and we all know that, and the more you look, the more you realise there's a lot that needs to be done. Some of the footpaths down Collingwood look like patchwork. Some of the furniture is falling apart. They're missing pieces. They're leaning over. The bins are all leaning over. There's dead trees. There's gardens that kind of are more gravel than garden. There's light posts that potentially falling, you know, have stability risks. There's a lot that we need to work on. And in this current fiscal climate, I think that it's important that we first start with looking after and enhancing what we've got, rather than doing big projects like what we originally looked at a number of years back for Alexandra Street, which may have been around 20 million to redo the street to a really nice standard, to kind of more of a gold standard. But if we want to reach that standard with everything, we'll just never do anything. So the whole thing here is going, okay, how do we really just make everything that we have look nice and looked after and cared for and in working order? So we've got some exciting developments coming up, the regional theatre, we've got the hotel just down the road on Ward Street, and I think it's important that we do our part to look after the public spaces around the city when we've got so much investment coming into the city in other ways. OPEX, we always, I guess, are a little bit allergic to operational costs, but in this case, actually spending less overall, but in OPEX gives us the outcome we're looking for, which is looking after what we've got. So I think, you know, overall, you do also save some money from not spending the capex that we're saving in this overall budget. There's around 65k of interest that we won't be paying in year 3 because of that. So it's a little bit offset. You know, when you add together the other savings we'll likely have through this program. So yeah, I appreciate support and appreciate also, sorry, Paula, for your work on Worley Place and coming to a compromise there, and to other councillors who have worked together on this, and Councillor Jeff as well, and staff. Thank you. Sorry, I ran out of time.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair O'Leary. Look, I want to reiterate a huge thanks to staff, Tanya and Robin. Karen Saunders and Maria Barry at times, and at times they started to have a bit of a haunted look on their eyes. As I fielded constant questions and iterations from Sarah and me coming off the bench occasionally as well. But the irony is the fact that the NZTA sort of backed off with the subsidies, but to me it actually gives us more freedom and the ability to actually customise and come up with projects that actually suit us. Instead of, chasing a carrot that's been dangled. And I look at the projects and I see, a good mix of genuine safety projects, attempt to get more shopper car parks in Caro Street, and improving the streetscapes in Alexandra Street and Collingwood Street, and planning to do that in Barton Street. With some focus around the theatre precinct too. And look, I'm sorry about Worley Place. I don't support the large investment at the moment. Look, overall, I think we've tried to be prudent. We can't do much about the tough economic environment we've got, but we can do something about the streetscape that we're offering businesses and the residents of the city. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think we've been prudent, and there's more than 500k which we're not going to spend, which we want to bank, because we actually see more value in the OPEX in terms of doing the sort of tidying up that we want, which is why we're sort of getting rid of the 500k but hoping to have 150k for OPEX just to do the tidy up around the theatre, etc. Thank you.
Councillor Pike. Thank you, Chair. Look, this suite of projects have come to us as a result of losing 41 million in NZTA funding. It's meant that we had to go back and look hard at this large list of minor projects and prioritise them. And I do want to thank staff and the Deputy Mayor for giving us the opportunity through 2 workshops to go through them with a fine-tooth comb so we can get that priority right. I'm always mindful, though, that our books are extremely tight and there's a real need to be fiscally responsible, particularly when we've lost so much funding, and we need to treat the ratepayers' money carefully. I do believe the Councillor Thompson and Taylor motion finds a good balance, allowing most of the projects to go ahead, but also looking after what we've got instead of trying to do too much at once. So I think it's a sensible suggestion, and I'll be supporting the motion today.
Thank you. Councillor Bidder.
Looking at the pedestrian safety priority section of the program, half of them are still in yellow. We could do those. They're mainly pedestrian crossings, signalised pedestrian crossings. We know from Heafy Terrace, when we got the breakdown of the figures, that the construction cost is $200,000, and somehow we managed to have $400,000 of overhead on top of that. Looking at these that are shown at $750,000 a pop, we could halve that and do all the yellow ones easy. I hear a lot of talk about the importance of safety. We're not achieving it because we are wasting money. We need to do things in a different way.
Mayor Southgate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the workshops you put on. Thank you for the work that people have been doing, beavering away over the last period of time, and leaning into the detail. I'm going to support this motion, and Sarah's quite right. I've reached a compromise, which is what we have to do politically all the time to get where we're going to go. I do want to, however, speak up for the Worley Place project in terms of what I think is important. With everything that I looked at on that list, on that chart, I was thinking, what are we trying to fix? And I did talk to some councillors about that. What are you trying to fix? Make our city a place that people love to be was the answer, and that's fine, but I get more granular than that. What I'm trying to fix there is the constant picking up and putting over cobbles from a health and safety perspective. But put that aside. It's cost us a lot of money over many years to pick those cobbles up and put them down again. We've got to stop doing that. But put that aside, what really resonated with me was the opportunity to connect the new hotel through Worley Place, through Garden Place, maybe Alexander, through to the new theatre. That's what I'm trying to solve. So I'm trying to solve the conflict between vehicles and cars here, because I don't think that shared space has ever worked as well as we intended it to be, and that happens. And Robin made an interesting comment about tall buildings. Usually having a shared space between two tall buildings. Well, that's not the case. So we need to do something differently. I think Collingwood Street will have its time when the Templeton Hotel comes on, and we can make a really excellent boulevard from Templeton Hotel down Collingwood Street. At the moment, my focus is from getting people from the new hotel that's going to be first, down Worley Place, across from the major shopping mall, through a space that we're trying to revitalise to our beautiful theatre. The other bits and pieces, there's some good ideas, but we have to be careful of doing a little here, a little there without making the overall impact. So that to me, this was about people and connectivity and actually having the biggest impact on businesses. Every last little improvement that we do, we should be thinking, how does that give benefit to one of our CBD businesses? And that was where my thinking was. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Have I spoken on this? I haven't, Oh, sorry. Look, just a few words from me. I want to thank Councillor Thompson and Councillor Taylor for their advocacy with the CBD, in particular the ability to prioritise the projects within that funding envelope while also achieving $500,000 worth of savings. Well done for that. For me personally, what's still in here, a couple of projects with my creative ambassador hat on. Of course, I advocated for pedestrian zones and connections for the new regional theatre and making sure that there's funding for that, and also a safer crossing and pedestrian treatment across Tristram for the Clarence Street Theatre. So thank you for keeping that in there. I also have advocated, and I'm delighted to see an increase in your motion for higher impact lighting for Garden Place. I joked through both of the workshops and even threw a pen on the ground because at one stage, because I wanted 5 million fairy lights in Garden Place, I was trying to illustrate that without high impact lighting, we're not going to be able to achieve some of the things that we want to achieve there. In regards to Worley Place, in the future, actually, I would like to see it and Garden Place turned into a proper pedestrian area. I think the city will grow into that quite quickly. I also know that over many years of sitting around the table, as soon as we go into Garden Place and start ripping up things and with big ticket items, that is not politically palatable, particularly in an environment where we are dealing with some financial constraints. So I'm very supportive of what has been compromised with, and actually also around the $7,000 I think that has been spent already through repairs and maintenance, fixing the actual issue, which was Councillor Hutt losing her footing because she has small feet and some of those huge cracks. That issue has been addressed. So thank you. Councillor Thompson, right of reply.
Thank you. And really only just to give a proper thank you to our staff, to Tanya, Robin, Karen and Maria also. You guys did a lot of work helping with putting together this motion. And also I just had to smile at when Councillor Emma said the Thompson and Taylor motion. I thought it sounded like an engineering firm. Or a law firm. Good alliteration. But no, thank you very much to everyone for your support on this. I'm genuinely very excited I think it will make a real difference over the next 2 years. And things will start to really look good around our central city. So, thanks.
Let's do that on a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Carried unanimously.
No, and those are opposed. Those opposed.
Sorry, apologies.
Okay.
Councillor Bitter dissenting.
Thank you. Right, and the second motion we will put up on the board, and that is Councillor Hutt, and I have the privilege of seconding that. I think it's fairly clear. So, Councillor Hutt, would you just like to explain your outcome for your motion?
Sure. So, the Western Rail Trail extension is a project that was proposed to be funded. The Beta Peacock Bikes on Pipes was a project that was not going to be funded. I'm proposing to swap them. There's a 50K difference, and I'm stealing that money from the gazetting project because I think we can accept gazetting slightly less. That is the motion.
Any questions? I think that's fairly clear. Oh, yeah.
Stuff into the cycle lane register, so it is a cycle lane, but we add it to the formal cycle lane register. And it's also, I think, a handful of curb cuts and things like that. So if you want to come to traffic panel tomorrow, we will be adding things to the cycle lane register.
Okay, all right, so let's move into debate. There are no questions on that. So Councillor Hutt.
Thank you. So the Western Rail Trail extension is basically from Kahikatea Drive, where the current Western Rail Trail, the nice part ends, and then going through a series of shared paths, parks, etc., through to Collins Road in Deanswell. The Western Rail Trail extension does need some love. I've biked it. I've biked it in the pouring rain, but there is infrastructure there. It's okay. It's bearable. I didn't come off my very wet bike ride fuming that City Council needed to do something about it. But Bikes on Pipes was an opportunity we took up with the development of Peacock to make the infrastructure we were already building for pipes, to make it do double duty for walking and cycling connections across gullies and green spaces. We already heard today from Rana Hay about how dire the situation is in Beta and Peacock for walking and cycling, particularly for young people, older people, and people with disabilities. And this wouldn't address all of the concerns, but it would provide some significantly safer options and choices for routes in Beta and Peacock, and it's a step towards eventually connecting the river path and the western side of the new bridge. So really this is just about not letting stranded infrastructure that we've already built and is sitting there stay unused and unloved for possibly years, but just a commitment to joining up the network, providing options, and making sure suburbs like Beta get some love. Easy peasy.
And as the seconder, I concur with and support everything that Councillor Hutt has said. It is sensible to connect this part of Bikes on Pipes. We need to start making, in my view, making sense of how we connect areas of our city, how we connect our facilities, particularly with walking and cycling infrastructure, and how we connect our central city with things like these facilities, with our awa, with our parks. You've heard me say a little bit, and it's certainly no criticism around hodgepodge Hamilton. Sometimes we get these different funding opportunities. We'll do a little bit here and a little bit over here and a little bit over here, and I think we need to stop that. I think it makes sense to progressively connect things. That's what we've seen in the previous motion, that's what's going to do around the CBD, that's what we're going to achieve. And also, the side benefit of this is if we get this done in time before the end of the term, well, we're probably not, but myself and the Deputy Chair of Infrastructure, Councillor McIndoe, did a handshake bet on a race, one in a car and one on a bike. And so this might be, hopefully if Bikes on Pipes, not this project, but the bridges are finished and opened, we might be able to do that before the end of the term. Thank you. Mayor Southgate.
Thank you. Absolutely support 110% your comment about doing bits and pieces, taking a scatter seeds approach to things rather than a connected, joined up approach to things. I might have said that in the last debate, by the way, but just leave that aside. I love Bikes on Pipes. I think it's one of the best things that we've achieved across infrastructure. You know, it ticks all the boxes for everyone. It's off-road, so it doesn't compete with transport, other forms of transport. It's safe. It's going to be beautiful and stunning through one of the newest parts of Hamilton, and it absolutely makes sense. So well done for thinking that way, Louise. And I also ride the Western Rail Trail sometimes, but it's a different kind of cycling experience than this one is. This one is going to be one of the best suburban cycling experiences that Hamilton offers, I believe. And so bring that on, and I'm happy to be the starter on the starter gun for your race when it occurs, Madam Chair.
Can you point it at her tyres?
Oh, cheat. There are no further debaters, so we will put that to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And there looks like there are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Now, I think we'll just press on, right? Because I think we've only got, we've got an update on parking, the GM's report, and then we've got 3 items in PX. I think we can get this done and dusted by 1. So we're not going to break for lunch if that's, everyone's pretty happy? Oh, have we not taken care of the rest of this?
Sorry, the big mega green list, we had the, I smushed it, is
Yeah, we
what my
have taken-
technical
yeah.
terms are.
Yeah, no, yeah, everything's been smushed. All right.
Smushed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it had the little asterisks as that subject.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the update on parking. Now, this is the first report we've had with in-depth information on parking, and seriously, we could sit here for 2 hours or 2 days. And also what's going through my mind is the concerns raised by Vanessa William, HCBA, in the public forum. We'd have a lot of questions on that and what are the options to fix. So I think we can, if we take the report as read, if there's anything really pressing that you want to see in a future report, please ask those questions. We have 2 staff members also joining Martin Parks who are operational. Chris Parker is a parking warden, so that's our person on the street, and William Tarawhiti as well, but they're both in support of Martin operational. But let's not go down a rabbit hole if we can, and let's make a note saying that we do, because I think a workshop and a briefing is the chance to really get involved and bring our parking hats and run through all of the questions in depth. So try and keep it a little high level at this stage. So Martin, do you want to come down?
Sorry, Chair, I was just checking, there was one additional motion that came from Councillor Thompson and myself.
Oh, the parking,
Yeah.
yes, to be attached to this.
I just want to
Yes,
just
great
wanted
idea.
to let you know about it, so you
Yes,
could
of
let-
course,
let
sorry, yes. And we have an additional motion.
All the way.
I think we'll all be in support of.
Yeah, this is, keep it this size.
Oh, large font. So while we're having a look at that, Martin, did you want to present your report?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to present to you today on the parking activity. Unfortunately, Chris Parker couldn't make it. He's busy out on the streets today, so apologies for that. Yeah. I listened into Vanessa Williams's comments in the public forum, and I think the first thing I wholeheartedly agree with Vanessa is that parking needs to be easy. Let's not lose sight of that in whatever we do in the parking activity. We've got to think about the end user, the customer, and make it easy for them. So that's probably all I need to say. And as you say, Madam Chair, that take the report as read, and if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Hutt.
Thank you. Hi, Martin.
Hi.
The app, parking app, it's not a Hamilton-only app. It's used around the country, right?
That's correct. It's used by many cities around the country and district councils as well. So I think there's about 12 or 15 on the list.
How different is the user experience for Hamilton than other places? Like, thinking about Vanessa's kind of description of 18 screens to kind of continue through. Is it the same in other places, or are we particularly
It depends, through the chair, it depends on the actual restrictions or fees you've actually got on the seat, and that does impact on the complexity of the system you go through on the app or even at the kiosks themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have to admit, I accidentally downloaded the wrong app. Because the first one that came up in a sponsored, like, Google Play, I was like, yeah, this is it. Click. No. The other question I had was around how easy is it to make changes to the app itself? Like, does it require us to simplify the process, or can we talk to the developers and say, can we rejig?
Good question. go back to what I said at the start, make it easy for the customer. So if the system out there is pretty straightforward and simple, then the app can be pretty straightforward and simple. Once you add in a lot of complexity into your parking management system, then the app starts to struggle a bit in the back end. So look, we've talked to the app developers and providers, and I mean, William may correct me, but it has limitations. So we can only do so much with it.
And I spoke to you probably a few months ago about the layout of kiosks and where they were, and you said to me that we will review them.
Are you talking about the number and where they are on the street?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, we have completed that piece of work, and I think there are a few areas, and it's not many, where potentially an additional kiosk or two could actually benefit the customers, and we are exploring that a bit further around refining those locations and then working out some costings as well.
Yeah, because we haven't budgeted for that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Start with, I'm very interested in having options come back to elected members on steps we can take to make it easier to use the parking system. And so is the best thing now just to hold tight, wait for the briefing, and then out of that we'll be able to have the opportunity to bring forward some ideas to the next meeting? Okay. The other question forgive me if this was covered, but last term there was discussion around the idea of taking a compliance approach, more of a compliance approach to parking, and I'm particularly interested in the WAF and Rego fines that are like $200 each. Can we have information come back to us on what the impact would be if we were to have a system where we gave a warning and gave people, say, 48 hours, whatever it might be, to pay rather than fining them straight away? Yeah. Thank you.
If you just add into your motion about to bring back some options.
Sorry, I think sorry, just to interrupt. I think we already do that now.
Yeah, we do.
So William will be able to. So we have a process in which we currently give. There's a grace period, but I'll get William to explain that.
I have not received the grace period twice in the last few years, so whatever that system is, I was not the beneficiary of it. So. No, but sorry.
Just. Thank you, William.
No worries.
I've already paid. There's no interest.
Tēnā koutou, everyone. We do have a system in place. You get a month's grace from the time that your WAF expires to 28 days. Right. After your WAF has been expired for longer than 28 days, you will receive live infringement.
Yeah, okay.
So if we catch you within those 28 days, you will receive that warning. If we catch you again within those 28 days after receiving a warning, you'll get a live infringement because you haven't complied. But definitely after 28 days, we will give you a live infringement. Okay,
thank you. It's helpful. I think it doesn't cover everything though. Like if it could still further information come back to us, it's just I want as much as possible people to have a positive experience coming into places like the CBD, and then if you're like, oh, bummer, $200 gone.
With the briefing, what would be helpful is members, we're eating into extra time here. With the briefing, what would be helpful if we can get an email circulated. First of all, find a date for the briefing, and get an email circulated with some of the specific themes that will be covered, and we can work our way through those. So, and if there's anything missing from that, themes will be covered, because it's such a huge topic, right? Yeah. And there might be things that, like pricing, that we just agree on, and we'll deal with pricing and fees and charges through an annual plan. So if Tanya can organise that email, send it round and respond. Perfect. Please respond to it of what you want to see. I think that's the way forward, because otherwise we will be here for 2 days. Councillor McIndoe.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Councillor Louise has already touched on one of the issues that I was interested in. Vanessa Williams made the comment that there are, at times, even she has struggled to find a kiosk, and yet I note that in paragraph 37 on page 87, we're advised that kiosks are located across the CBD with over 80% of parking bays being within a 30-metre walk. What's the biggest distance between kiosks, do you know? Because I'm surprised that Vanessa couldn't find one.
Through the chair, yeah, look, I don't know the biggest distance. It's, what do you think, William? About 60 to 70 metres potentially? Or it might be slightly bigger. I can get you that information and let you know. But we have identified areas where there are some gaps that potentially need filling. So we end up with every parking bay very close to that 30-metre radius. Yeah.
I recognise that they come at significant cost, the installation of each kiosk. Yes. Also in that paragraph, it's noted that kiosk registrations have increased from 1,700 per day in May of last year to 2,500 per day just 6 months later. Over time, presumably, though, we would expect that number to start to decrease again as people become more comfortable with using the app. Am I correct, or is that a false assumption?
It's not a false assumption at all. We've certainly seen an increase in app use over the last 12 months, and ideally, we'd like to see more app use going forward. And my hope is one day, and I don't want to put a time frame on this, is we don't have kiosks on the street. Everything's done via app. It will just make life so much simpler.
At the risk of making an ageist assumption, I'm assuming that it's the elderly members of our community who are more resistant to using an app as opposed to the kiosks.
Yeah, I won't sort of, I'm not going to say anything around that.
And it was partly based on retailers who've said to me that their customers are concerned about how far that they have to walk if they are reasonably elderly, perhaps frail, whatever.
Yeah.
So I realise it's not really a question on that, but would you like to comment?
I mean, I'll comment on it and say that in my head, in the next sort of 10 years, I'd like to see a reduction in kiosks on the street and more people using the app. And I think with the trend we're seeing in app use, I think that's leading us down that path in the future.
I think you're probably right. I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Osten.
Firstly, thanks, Chair, for your approach to dealing with the wider issues that will come out of this. One of our submitters today talked about sporting events and organisers and the parking habits that are starting to come up and problems around that. And I was also contacted by a resident with regard to a sporting event. I'd like that to be one of the topics if we could, and I thank you, Tanya, for that. So I haven't got a question out of that, actually, so just if we could note that, that would be great. But it is a problem, isn't it? There's my question. Have we noticed it more now than in the past?
Yeah, look, we do have problems around certain sports grounds with parking, particularly if there's a large sporting event being held at that. And I don't think for those large sporting events you can ever provide enough car parking in close proximity to that sports ground. We're expecting people to maybe park further away and walk. There seems to be a little bit of a reluctance to do that at times in certain locations. But, you know, William and his team, they try and proactively monitor those sites as much as we can with the resources we have available.
And we're working with organisers, presumably. They know when they're doing it. They've got their sports groups that they're inviting to come along. It's plenty of notice in order to be able to, I don't know, sort out the carpooling or whatever other options.
That's right. I think some of them are now getting a bit more savvy at certain sports grounds when they're having an event there, that they are doing more of that carpooling, or some of them are using PT and others are parking further away and walking to those events. Yeah.
Right. I look further forward further discussion about that. The other thing that I was interested in, the Pay My Park doesn't have an option to find my park, does it? So I can't go on there and say, I'm going to this general area, where is a car park available in that? And I know that that's available in some other cities. Is that something that we can hook up to, or that is available to us in any kind of way?
I think if I may just jump in, Councillor Maxine, that's probably something we can come back as considerations for that briefing to investigate as part of that ease of options and access.
Thank you. That's
I would just add to that is that the technology around parking management is changing quite quickly. It's a bit like camera technology. Things are advancing quite quickly, and certainly I think not necessarily today, but sometime in the not too distant future, I think those types of facilities would be available generally.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Ms Southgate.
Thank you for the excellent report. I was looking that map on page 89, which the LPR activity levels. Does that tell us any? Has that been analysed in terms of what do we know? I mean, at St Andrews, right? What's going on there? Can we deduce anything from that, or is there a particular activity that lends itself to that higher level, or? Hamilton's, the Central's doing all right in this little only thin sliver.
There is some enforcement needed to be done around the back streets of St Andrews, your Forsyth Street, where backs onto the MSD. So we've had a number of customer requests to monitor those time restrictions. For the rest of St Andrews, I think that's the majority of it. Tarapa Road has some new time restrictions as well that we've been monitoring.
Okay, because I'm just interested in how we use that data to understand what's causing people to to not stick within the rules. There is usually a reason, isn't there? A driver.
That would be the big juggernaut that is MSD, that hires lots of people and they don't have enough car parking.
And same with the hospital, you see. The hospital area is interesting.
Oh, the hospital? Sorry, yeah, that's correct. From that, there's a lot of hospital staff that don't have enough parking or don't really want to pay for their parking. There are visitors as well who are attending the hospital.
So through you, Madam Chair, I wonder if in the piece of work that's to be done, that we do delve a little bit further into the reasons that people are, and that does cover the question that Maxine asked about sports too. What's leading people to park incorrectly, or what else can we do about the traffic or the parking in that area to address issues? The last question's, Madam Chair, so I wonder if that could be picked up. Just couldn't see it. Oh, might be not reading close enough. But in terms of the expansion of options around the CBD, I was looking for some input, some data on the Founders car park that is remainder car park. I've gone past that when I walk home quite often, and it's only half full. It seems like a really gem of an opportunity to park on right now. What's going on with that? What do we know?
So Founders is it's $7.50 a day.
Yep.
On-street parking is $6.50.
Why? So the park.
Into the briefing as well, because obviously there's future decisions on it as you raised.
So I'm interested in that.
Usage and
what's underlying? Because I was really interested. I thought people would find that a really convenient spot, and it wasn't full. Just one other part going on. Maxine's comment about sports grounds. Innes Common, the footpath, the paved footpath, is frequently on the sports side, frequently inaccessible. What are we intending to do about that? I get a lot of complaints about that, especially when the cricket's on.
I agree. We have had requests to attend. We're narrowing down the day, so we've got our weekend crew looking into that. I do know it's during the week as well.
Yeah.
So we
And the events organisers, what obligation, what are we doing with in terms of those? Because there is a couple of groups in particular that are, yeah.
Yep. So I'm working with the parks team as well to engage with them, to let them know the rules around parking. So I'm working with the parks team, and then we're going on site to go and attend those events. For our team, it's really narrowing down the days and the time, because we don't want to go there and it's not on. So I'm getting more information from the parks team.
I'm interested in events at the briefing as well, diving into that. Mangai Noa, last questions from you.
One, not comparing apples with apples, but having a tiki tiro around Puniki, Panganuiatara, lots of motorcyclists and lots of scooters and lots of motorbike congestion. Just in terms of within Kirikiriro, is there motorbikes are still free? Cyclists are still free? Free parking?
Yep, that's correct.
Is it growing in terms of demand? Motorcycle space?
A little bit. We're certainly seeing a bit more demand in the Garden Place car park building for motorcyclists.
So to future-proof that, would there be more motorcycle car parking required?
And we're looking at the moment. Yep.
Kia ora.
Great. No, that's it. No, that is it. No, no. And I think I have proven that when we have a parking report, there are never high-level strategic questions. They're always right down into the detail straight away. So that's it. All right, so thank you for adding B, and we've also added C. We don't have to detail absolutely everything because it says on parking matters, including those raised at the meeting. So that's it. So Councillor Thompson, pardon me, Councillor Taylor's going to move because he loves parking. Yeah, and Councillor Thompson second. So Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be brief. In following a lot of discussions with retailers and sort of coinciding with the work that we've been doing regarding the unsubsidised program, we're looking at providing more angled car parking in Caro Street. And we realised in talking with staff, there are opportunities for more, to have a look at more on and off street parking around Caro Street and in fact around the rest of the central city. There does seem to be a real appetite from retailers for that. We know times are tough and some people are doing it really hard at the moment. So it just feels to us like a really good opportunity to just see what else we can squeeze out. Without a lot of cost, without it being huge, big projects or anything, but just sensible, opportunities that we can look at in terms of that.
Thompson is seconder.
I'll save everyone time.
Okay, thank you. Ms Southgate.
Just very quickly, thank you for the good work on this, but I do want to say that my interest is in what underlies the behaviour. So if you can understand what's driving people to comply with parking arrangements or not, then we're going to get a better arrangement. And that may, in some instances, mean we need to provide additional parking or different parking in a different way. We did that at Marist on the grass there, where the grass was always being churned up, where we put those blocks where the grass grows through them, those things, technical thing. And we were able to allow some temporary parking. So, I'm really interested in the next part of the report, so thank you for the good work. It's always very political.
Thank you. That's all the debate. So, Councillor Thompson, did you reserved your... No? Yeah, no, but you were seconder and you didn't speak. I wasn't encouraging you.
Only to say, I do think that retailers, one of the biggest things for them is parking, and so if we are able to find opportunities right in the core of the central city, like our off-street parking at Caro, to provide some additional parking, then I think that would be very welcome alongside of the other things we are doing in the central city. There's lots on. I also think, you know, we don't want people having bad experiences coming in. That's where, you know, we've got to enforce our time limits and things, but getting a $200 fine is like a bit of a bad experience, you know, and you might go, do I want to come back to the CBD next time? So it's just something to think about. Is there anything more we can do to do that differently? I'll just leave it there.
Councillor Taylor, right of reply? No, great. All right, let's put that to the vote. Show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That's been carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, as per standard procedure, item 12 is for information only. I haven't had any emails from members with burning questions. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Seconded by Councillor Hutt. Any debate? All those in favour, please raise your hands. Well, yes, I know. Just, it's kumbaya all the way today. That's been moved unanimously. I will move that we move into public excluded, seconded by, who? Going once, going, Councillor Van Osten, I'll take you because I heard your voice. All those in favour say aye. There are none opposed, that's carried, thank you. 5 minutes stand up.